Well, welcome to another episode of the Student Garden Thought Leaders. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Bev Bury. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you.
Bev, obviously we're here at Flinders, this amazing building and campus that you've just given us a bit of a tour of. Unfortunately, we couldn't have the view behind us for today, but for those listening in and watching, I can say, look, we've got an amazing view of the Adelaide Oval out the back, so pretty cool to be joined here at Flinders. Obviously, you're the CMO of Flinders University. Perhaps if we could kind of start off, if you could just tell us a little bit, perhaps about your background and maybe just a bit about your role and kind of what your day-to-day looks like here at Flinders Uni.
Yeah, of course. So my background, a very quick summary, is I kind of grew up in agency world back home in London.
The dark side, as some people say, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, worked across a lot of different brands, but always had that focus on having a positive impact on the communities around me. Loved agency world, learned a lot, but then when I moved to Australia, I went client side and spent a long time in tourism. So both Tourism Northern Territory and South Australia tourism. Before coming over to higher ed, so really wanted to challenge myself, learn about a new industry, and it's been a very steep learning curve, but a great one, an exciting one, and coming over to Flinders, as CMO, I joined 18 months ago and we'd just come together as a new team, so marketing and student recruitment, really focused on domestic recruitment, and it's been quite a ride. We've come together as a team. Our remit is big. Domestically, it's competitive right now, especially in South Australia. A lot of work to do. And day to day, I mean, my first 6 months were really about building a really strong foundation. So restructured the team, worked through our vision, our shared priorities as a team as well, and just set that clear path. And what was our North Star? What are we working towards? And since then, some big meaty projects are underway, really focused on CRM, personalisation, looking ahead into the future, a customer data platform as well, online product. So that there's lots happening, as well as a brand evolution as well. Okay. So, but it's great. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and obviously before we were chatting, you mentioned one of the things that kind of attracted you into this role was coming into like a challenger brand, I suppose, in this market. Was there a lot of, I guess, similarities from kind of working within tourism and Northern Territory to come across that you could kind of bring across in terms of, I suppose, probably some of the challenges you face, but also, I imagine working Northern Territory's got such an awesome story to tell when it comes to tourism, but in the same way, it's an extremely competitive space when you're competing with the rest of Australia. So was there a lot of things that you could kind of bring across into this role from your experience in the tourism world before you kind of came to education?
Yeah, there definitely was, and I think both NT and SA are, as a destination, they are challenger destinations as well. Both destinations are competing against New South Wales, Sydney Opera House, the Reef in Queensland. So, real famous, iconic landmarks that draw an international and domestic crowd. So I think that challenger brand mindset I've brought with me. But also for tourism, we talked about tourism as a category. You see Postcards from Paradise, it's a sea of sameness, a montage of the best places to visit. And I think that's very similar for higher ed as well. So, we joke internally about 3 under a tree. You always see 3 students sat under a tree. So I think, that's the opportunity ahead, is how do we disrupt the category? What can we do differently as a challenger brand to really set ourselves apart from the rest? So I'm looking forward to how we really work on the brand and what it looks like into the future.
Yeah, and I think you kind of only have to look at your social media channels, and a lot of the content that you put out is, pretty student-centric and people-centric, and it's like the stuff that we really love at Student Garden, which is authentic stories kind of told by the students and kind of putting them at the core, and it not necessarily being there's a place obviously for the big TVC campaign, but also to have like all these, there's just these amazing stories to be told kind of people, in a place like Flinders Uni. So I think you guys are doing, it seems like you're really focusing on telling the kind of student stories just by looking at your content as well.
Yeah, we are, and that, like you said, that authentic voice is really important to us, and something that we just want to continue to build on. I think, in terms of trends, what we are seeing is that brand isn't governed solely by an organisation anymore. The brand ecosystem goes far beyond what we can control. It's influencers, creators, it's community, it's culture. So I think that, again, an opportunity for us is to tap into that, and we really want to harness that trend. And Gen Z, they are the loneliest generation to date. So community is really important. It's something that we do really well. So how can we leverage that even more and really focus on it to make sure that, again, that the experience that you might get with other universities, bigger universities. I mean, we're still big. We're 25,000 students at the moment, approximately. But how do we really focus on that and make sure that it's a really positive student experience, right from when you're a prospective student through to when you enrol, arrive on campus, and then stay with us through to alumni.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned obviously you started in the role 18 months ago. Probably quite an interesting time to start because it's kind of post-COVID where it felt like the whole industry just went through this crazy amount of change in terms of delivery, but also in terms of a whole raft of changes. We're kind of going through more changes in the industry at the moment, it seems like, with obviously there's talk of the student caps kind of happening from an international point of view. There's a lot of change, there's a lot of conversation around HEX and the various kind of changes sort of in that space. With all that kind of in mind, what are some of the things that are, I suppose, kind of top of mind for you and sort of keeping you up at night when you kind of look across that broad spectrum of things you're kind of involved in your role?
Yeah, I think all of those things are impacting the student pipeline right now. So Flinders has got a really, our brand health right now is the strongest it's ever been in terms of awareness, consideration, intention. So we're out in market, we are punching above our weight, and we're getting a healthy number of applications through. But I think what's really important and what keeps me awake at night is making sure that we nurture those students right the way through the pipeline. So what are those small micro moments that are so important to them that we can just dial up and focus on? So it could be something really, really small. It could be bigger things, but I'm constantly thinking, along with the team, on how can we improve that customer experience, that student experience right through the pipeline, to make sure that if finances is a real a concern for students. Well, how can we reassure them? What scholarships have we got? How can we guide them through that? Again, with application, that can be quite a complex, convoluted process. So how can we make that easier for the student? What tools can we provide them with? So they're the things that, and in a good way, they keep me up at night because, just constantly thinking of different ways we can do things.
Yeah. And, when you think about, that is just like an evolving piece in terms of how do you kind of deliver that awesome student experience. Like, are the barriers to really nailing that, how much of that is the technology and integration versus like it's just an enormous amount of work to produce content and personalize it? Like, how much of it is the technological challenge versus kind of the storytelling piece? Because I think that those two things kind of obviously coexist.
Yeah, the tech side is interesting, and we were talking earlier, it's so different to previous roles that I've had, because I'm finding in higher ed there are so many layers of tech, and getting them all speaking to one another is a challenge. So a big piece of work that we are just finalising at the moment is really uplifting our CRM and making sure that it's bringing in the right data points, and we're optimising as much as we can. So that has taken a long time, but now that that's up and running and we've got the right capabilities and talent in the team to really have fun with that and play with it, then we can work quite quickly. And how I've restructured the team is that we've got 4 heads of that work so closely and are so aligned in what we want to achieve that when we do want to pull a lever to test some ideas and see if that increases our conversion, we can come together pretty quickly and make that happen. So I'd say it's really the tech that takes the time, but once you get it right and you've got your structure right, then it's pretty quick to move.
You're spot on with like the people being the enabler to get the tech, and I think obviously having that capability in-house, and obviously I'm sure you lean on external providers as well, but having the ability to be able to do that kind of in-house and just move really quickly must be a huge strength, and probably is part of the reason why you're able to kind of adapt, and you guys are really making a lot of progress in terms of the brand, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, and I think having recruitment within my team as well, we can then see the impact that those small things are having. So, increasing our conversion rates and having visibility of that and sharing that with the team. That's, they're big wins for us. So, and it all makes a difference.
In terms of, I suppose, you mentioned sort of the progress you guys have kind of made over the past kind of 12, 18 months. Can you speak to some of the, I guess, trends and some of the things that you're thinking about kind of in your role and in the team, in terms of like whether it's technology, whether it's related to kind of the education market itself? What are some of the things that you guys are thinking about and trying to lean into? You mentioned customer experience as one focus. Are there other things that you guys are observing, or whether it's bringing things out of industry kind of into your work? I'd love to kind of hear some insights into that.
I think a big one has been focusing more on the customer experience. So as part of the restructure, I introduced a head of CX, which has been fantastic, and it just means that, again, we've got the capabilities and the team is structured so that we can focus on that and find those moments that make a difference.
So obviously we've spoken a little bit about kind of the brand and the journey you've been on the brand. I think one of the challenges that we often see kind of within universities in particular is kind of how do you balance the sort of hero brand campaigns and brand messaging versus kind of the more kind of nitty-gritty student experience kind of, whether it's course specific or course area style messaging, and knowing as well you've got stakeholders at a faculty level as well, and everyone's kind of got targets and demands. So how do you guys go about finding that balance of and how do you approach having, is it about having that cohesive message at the top and everything flows down from there? How do you kind of approach finding the balance between those two things?
Yeah, I find it really interesting and fascinating, actually, because higher ed, I think, typically focuses at a brand level on those rational proof points. And we're thinking about, well, how can we change that, and what's important to the prospective student, and how can we build in those emotional proof points? Why do you want to come to university? Why do you want to be a doctor, lawyer, sustainability expert, and really tapping into that? So student experience, I think if it's part of your DNA, then it should actually be part of your brand messaging at that high level. They're not mutually exclusive for me. But of course, when we get down to product specific, we've got a comms hierarchy where we are very clear at that top layer what we want to say. We call it feel, think, do. Cool. What do we want people to feel, and that's bringing in that emotive language. Are we there yet? No. Will it be part of our brand evolution? Yes, absolutely. Cool. It's really important. That think, that middle layer. What do we want people to think and then do? What do we actually want them to do as part of this? And just making sure that those layers, we've got that omni-channel approach, and that what the prospective student is seeing, what the customer, and that's almost a dirty word in higher ed, but I keep talking about it because they are customers. Totally. We are selling a product. That what they are seeing is consistent. But I think, student experience for us, it's part of our DNA, and therefore it should be part of our brand messaging.
And how does that actually come to life in terms of, obviously a big challenge then becomes to your point, like that's a really nice framework to be able to kind of communicate the structure of how you want to approach your marketing and your messaging. Obviously, you've got so many stakeholders kind of in a university environment. How do you kind of foster the collaboration? How do you make it, how do you deliver what we've just, what you've summarised quite nicely there? How do you kind of deliver that to this broad ecosystem of academics, of people in marketing, admissions, like people on the phones, and what does kind of, I guess, your team's role play in kind of generating that collaboration across all those departments? So, and that's obviously a big part of what makes you guys successful, I think.
Yeah, and it's something that I am investing a lot of time in as well. For me, it's really important if we've got a vision that everybody supports that vision, from the VC, right through to the team, academics. We've got 6 colleges, so all of our colleges as well. So how we've approached that is we bring the voice of the customer to every single meeting and every presentation, and I think that's been potentially absent before. Yeah. So I have found where we've had success in that area is making sure that everything we are recommending and talking about is backed up by insight. And that sounds obvious, but bringing the voice to the voice of the customer, you've then got a clear rationale and proof of why you should be doing things. And in higher ed, I have found in the institutions that I've worked in is that marketing and recruitment are seen as a service team, and we do service the entire organisation, but we're also strategic thinkers. We're insight led, we're results driven, so it's shifting our reputation as well, and making sure that we are seen as strategic thinkers that can really add value. And yes, we will still service the business, but we need to create space to do the really important strategic work that's going to make a difference to that bottom line.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that about the voice of the customer, because I find, it's such a unique environment in terms of a university where it's really high touch. There's a lot of conversations that happen with prospective students as they're making their way through the kind of customer journey. So the ability to capture those insights and kind of bring them into the strategy, I think, is probably underutilized across the industry, and it's pretty common in a lot of industries where you've got kind of high touch customer engagement on a phone. So it's interesting you say that. Like, are you doing that through, is it focus groups? Is it by getting those phone conversations? Like, practically, how does bringing the voice of the customer kind of come to, like, how does that actually work within your environment?
We've invested a lot more this year in it. So we have worked with an external provider on focus groups, but then making sure that we then extrapolate that to quantify it and just make sure that what we're hearing in those focus groups is right. So we've got a data set there. We also tap into our student recruitment team a lot more as well. So they're the people on the phones having the conversations. So making sure that we get their insights and we bring that into that voice of the customer piece as well. And then our own analytics, website, social, making sure that we're listening to all of those things as well. So and all of those data sets provide us with such a strong foundation that we can then, and we've built our strategy and our tactics off the back of that. So playing that back to stakeholders and making sure that we have those touch points, those regular touch points with stakeholders as well, and we're completely transparent and we share all of that information rather than it kind of just stay within my team. And we want to share that so people that understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think like a really exciting opportunity that's emerging with AI is just the ability to synthesize all those conversations and actually like generate insights out the back of them. Whereas like previously, you're relying on really detailed research, and like it's a lot harder to get those insights. Now the ability to be able to record those conversations in a compliant way, and then actually be able to pull insights out of that at scale is just going to be so powerful, I think, for not just for the education industry, but for a lot of these service businesses where I think, as I said, the customer insights have really come through smaller focus groups, or kind of from particular people who are on the front line. So I think that's going to be pretty cool as we kind of step into the future.
And just allows us to act quicker as well. I think gone are the days where you've got 12 weeks to run focus groups and get the report.
Totally.
I want things, much quicker than that, so we can then act on them.
Cool.
So
would love to hear, maybe just for the people listening and tuning in today, what's kind of a marketing challenge that you guys have recently faced? Again, I know you guys have been on this amazing journey. Would love to an opportunity to maybe pump up someone's tyres in the team. What's something that you guys have overcome, or something you've done that's been unique to kind of Flinders Uni and your strategy?
I think there's one example that we are working on as a team, and that's the BAU, the business as usual. That is a real challenge for us because, and I'm sure we're not alone as a team or even as an industry, but the BAU could take up
it's overwhelming.
All day, every day of everyone's time. So that's a real challenge for us to make sure that we create some space. And when we were talking about working with stakeholders, I've been very transparent on, at the moment or historically, BAU has taken up 100% of our time. And what that means is we're not able to think strategically, to work on the things that actually make a difference. So we've been kind of road showing our strategy and what the challenges are, and getting people to understand that sometimes we're going to have to say no to those things, so that we can do the things that matter. Not to say that those things aren't important, but are they going to deliver a measurable ROI? If they're not, then we have to focus on the things that are. So I think as a team, that's a constant thing that we are working on and trying to improve. An example of something that when we do have the time to work on the important stuff, it's a micro moment, but I think these things all add up to something really powerful. So previously on our website, you could book a one-on-one with a student advisor. Now that process was lengthy, it was 5 steps, and then we would get back to you and say, hey, we'll get back to you in 5 days' time. That is not a great customer experience. So what the team have done, and there's no one individual, it's been a real team effort, is completely transformed that process. So now it is a one-step process. The language we have changed to book a chat. Again, something so simple like that means more to a year 12 student.
I bet that did wonders for your conversion rate.
It did. So one-step process, you can book a chat immediately, and we've increased those by 200%.
Yeah, wow.
So that is an example of something that has made a real difference. Something so small, and sometimes I feel obvious, but that 200% then means that we're getting more students, having that one-on-one dialogue with our prospective advisors, and the conversion rates, trickle on from there.
I mean, just like hearing you talk, and I know you spoke about, that what excites you the most is kind of around the customer experience stuff. It's like very clear that you guys are living and breathing that, and it's like trying to step, even for ourselves, we kind of get, it's easy sometimes to get distracted from like what is important, and sometimes it is those really small changes that just make it easier. Like, how do we just make it easier for the prospective students to get the information they want in a timely manner, to help better inform their decision? Like, to your point, it kind of seems simple, but we kind of often get distracted, whether it's technology or the new shiny thing, or to your point, just like the overwhelming amount of other BAU stuff going on. So it's really, kind of refreshing just to hear you talk about that as a highlight, in terms of just how a small tactic like that can have such a large impact on, how people engage with the uni, and especially if that's the first time probably those people ever speaking to anyone, from the organisation, it's going to be a pretty awesome experience for them.
Yeah, and our research is also telling us the language that we use is so important, and I think sometimes we presume prospective students, the customer, knows what a postgraduate degree is, a bachelor, micro-credentials.
Yeah, totally.
But we've looked at our search data, and what it's telling us is that people are searching, what does postgrad mean? What does undergrad mean? So just, again, something small, but just changing our language and holding people's hands through the process. And that's something that I think Flinders excels at already, but that we will continue just to evolve and get even better at, whether it's a book a chat, a conversation, an open day experience. I was so proud of, talked about our new city campus where we are right now, but it was our first open day at the city campus last weekend, and our brand colour is our gold, and you could just see a sea of gold advisors and academics having those one-on-one conversations and just making that student feel part of Flinders already, and that's so important, just that one-to-one conversation rather than larger universities, it's one to many.
Totally,
At Flinders, the community is so important to us, and all of those moments really add up.
So a nice segue kind of into the last question, which is around international students. Obviously, there is a fair bit going on in terms of the introduction of international student caps. Sounds like it's going forward. There's more commentary from the government this week, on their commitment to making some changes there. How do you think that's going to impact the industry, I guess, or the Flinders, the uni? And I guess that the other part is, I'd be fascinated to know, when you think about marketing Flinders Uni to an international audience, how much of it is about, again, we come back to what we were talking about before, how much of that is about Flinders the brand versus Adelaide the brand versus the course area, the job opportunities? Like, that is, how do you guys think about it? First, how's the landscape changing? And then secondly, how do you kind of think about reaching international students, and like, what are the kind of dimensions that you're playing on in that space?
I mean, the next few weeks are critical, right? And we'll find out a lot more. It will impact the uni, absolutely, and I think it will impact, my remit is domestic, but it's still going to impact domestic, and it might put more pressure on domestic as well, and right now domestic is a very competitive environment. So and I also think it will impact how we do market to our international students. So, working really closely with our international recruitment team is going to be critical, because what we put to market, we need to sell not only Flinders, but Adelaide and South Australia as a destination, and that's where I kind of lean on my destination experience. We've got a great partner in Study Adelaide who do some fantastic
they do
work.
Awesome work.
But in my mind, it is positioning South Australia and Adelaide and getting us on the map first and foremost. Then it's about, well, what is that unique proposition that Flinders can offer an international student? And I keep coming back to it, but it is the student experience and that community. And then, product and working with our colleges to make sure that, any new product, any existing product works for both a domestic and an international audience as well. So there's lots of, cross-collaboration between the teams and just working all of that through. Yeah,
I'm sure, when you came into this role, it was very strategic in terms of having someone who has that experience, helping to kind of drive a destination, because and it's a cool marketing challenge to kind of have, and as you say, the next 3 weeks is going to tell how does that actually change in terms of what do those caps look like. But I think you guys it sounds like you guys are in pretty safe hands to tackle that challenge kind of head on.
Yeah, and looking forward to it as well. I think there is so much opportunity for Flinders. I'm 18 months in, but really we're just getting started now. So bring it on.
Well, thanks so much, Bev. I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. For anyone tuning in, is the best way to reach you LinkedIn if someone has a question to ask you or something?
Absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn. I love that platform. Made so many great connections. And always happy to make more.
And you post great content. We've only just connected, but I've been following some of your content, so get connected. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Bev.
you.